Hi gang, Rob here. It is the morning of 19 April 2013 and this is a video I sort of had to hold on to for a day or so until I calmed down and collected my thoughts and felt like I was able to come to you guys with a message that was going to be helpful instead of just angry. Like many of you, I suppose, I watched the President of the United States, Barack Hussein Obama, hold a press conference Wednesday afternoon, late in the afternoon, after he had watched a series of amendments offered by Democrats, some of them Democrats with lapdog rhino Republicans signed on to them. Amendments to Senate Bill S.649, which is the Safe Communities Bill, the gun control legislation, the bill that had been envisioned as an assault weapons and magazine capacity ban, which has now been watered down to a universal background check bill. After he had spent the afternoon watching those amendments fall like dominoes, he held a press conference. I don't know if this press conference had been planned earlier in the week, a victory lap for some amendments that were going to pass, or whether it was hastily arranged specifically to spit venom at the American people. But anyway, he had a press conference, and here was the setting for those of you who didn't get to see it. The podium was surrounded by an array of unwitting props to his confiscation agenda. Gabby Giffords was there. She spent the press conference nodding with a concerned look on her face. There were some parents of children who were murdered in the Newtown massacre. The press conference even began with a rather long speech given by one of the fathers. And please, folks, don't mistake the rest of what I'm going to say in this video as me having a hard heart or lacking compassion for those families. My heart, as do your hearts, goes out to those families. It is horrifying and gut-wrenching what those families have had to go through, and my prayers are with them all to have God's peace in this time of grief. And this one father did give a rather long, I think 7 or 8 minute speech that was a plea for our elected leaders to do something to curb gun violence and these kinds of events in our nation. Also on hand was old reliable Joe Biden. He started the press conference with his best funeral face on. He tried so hard, but he was unable to sort of hold on to it for very long, and then essentially just bowed his head with his eyes closed, as if to be in mourning. And then the president took the stage. And his reaction was rather telling. And this is a great study in the difference between what comes out of a man's mouth and what's actually going on. I should have said what comes out of a deceitful man's mouth and what's actually going on. And it's an interesting study for me because it's not unlike what I do for a living. I don't want to go into great detail, but I spend a lot of my life in negotiations with people who have an agenda that they don't exactly share candidly. And it's my job, in order to help them, to figure out what's really going on. So our president isn't much better at hiding his cards than the people I deal with every day. So let me kind of walk you through this. First of all, let's consider the legislation that has been offered. Let's consider what was in those amendments that were defeated in the Senate that day. They are presented to you, the American people, as a set of ideas, potential laws, which would prevent, in an effective way, events like the one that happened in Newtown, Connecticut, after they become the law of the land. And no need to analyze here. It's probably very well understood by those of you watching this video that the bills that have been offered, the amendments that have been offered, would have little or no effect in curbing gun violence in the United States because of their very design and what's left out of them. Most specifically, that not one penny, not one resource in any of these pieces of potential legislation is offered to actually enforce existing legislation or this new legislation that's been offered. We already don't prosecute people who fraudulently apply to own weapons under the current NICS system. And as they expand it vastly in this legislation, no further efforts are indicated that they're going to. So what we have is a set of ideas that would become law if the president gets his way, that would have absolutely no effect in stopping the kinds of events, the murders, that they are put forth for the purpose of stopping. And that sort of brings me to my first point between what's articulated and what's reality. You see, this gun control battle, this disarming of the people agenda that's been going on in the socialist wing of the Democratic Party for decades is finally on the cusp of coming to fruition. What's happened in our nation over the last, 80 years? An increasingly restrictive set of laws has been placed upon the American people to make it more difficult for them to keep and bear arms. Each one of them less effective at stopping gun violence than the last, by design, so that at some point in the future, our elected leaders can throw up their hands and say, you see, none of it is working. We need to take the guns. Now, while I have great empathy and do indeed pray for the families of loved ones who were lost in these massacres, they have been unwitting pawns trotted in front of the cameras and the microphones to speak to you, to advance an agenda that has nothing to do with stopping violent crime. Now let's talk about what the president said on Wednesday afternoon. He made an impassioned plea after a scolding to senators. He feigned empathy and encouragement to them because they are the victims fighting for their political lives of you. Of you. Guys who are watching this video. The senators were painted as rather hopeless figures who are beholden to you to keep their jobs and do the good work of the United States of America. He gave no thought to the possibility that there were actually some senators serving in their positions who believed the lie, or who believed the lie exists, who believed that these current efforts, just like all the ones that came before, to restrict our Second Amendment rights are thinly veiled efforts that lead to confiscation. He doesn't give them credit for being able to think that hard. Instead, he painted them as victims of the next group of mischaracterized Americans he mentioned in his speech. Those are NRA members, the gun owners of America, patriots who believe in the Second Amendment, who believe its darkest purpose, that the citizenry needs to be armed to prevent the government from becoming too powerful and making free men into slaves. Instead of people of goodwill, the backbone of this country, the watchdogs of our freedom that we are, he painted us as wacko, extremist gun lobbyists with total disregard for the safety of children. Cowboys who want to see the streets who want to see the streets running with blood. Now, see, he doesn't really believe either one of those things. He doesn't believe that we're patriots. He doesn't believe that we sincerely believe that an armed society is a safe society. And he doesn't believe that we're wacko. He doesn't believe that we're wacko killers either. What he really believes is that we are serious people who have gained power in our associations with each other, who have effectively convinced enough legislators up till this point to keep his confiscation agenda from happening. And it makes him very angry. It makes him very angry. You know, he was at once in that press conference extremely deceitful, a pathological liar, and a frustrated little kid who couldn't get his way. And then he collected himself and threatened us. He warned us that this fight is not over. And in that regard of what he said, we need to believe him. Sorry, guys. Making a turn. Please don't miss that part of his speech. It might have been the one sincere thing that he did or said during that press conference. He looked the camera right in the eye, through his teleprompter, I'm sure, and with great conviction served notice to us that he's not done. This fight is far from over. We need to believe him. We need to add to our numbers. We need to become more unified than ever. And we need to stop Barack Hussein Obama from finishing the work that he came to Washington to do, which is to transform America from a great and free, world-leading nation into one of many mediocre collections of subjects under dictators. No better or worse than any other nation on this earth. Part of a great collective of slaves. Well, we know what we have to do, don't we? Keep up the fight, my friends. Keep it peaceful, keep it civil, keep it righteous. And as my friend Don Such Double Ought says, long live the Republic. Grace and peace, my friends. Have a great day.